I received the divorce papers by email while I was still stationed overseas. 12 years of marriage ended in a PDF. My name is David, 39 years old, a flight sergeant with the Royal Air Force. I'd been in Al Udeid, Qatar, for 5 months when my wife, Claire, decided she was done waiting. The subject line read, "Let's handle this like adults." The message itself was only a few lines. She'd already filed the paperwork, emptied our joint account, and moved her new partner, Mark, into our flat in Manchester. I read the email twice, closed my laptop, took a shower in the communal block, got dressed for my shift, and said nothing to anyone. When I got back to my bunk that night, I replied with a single word, "Understood." That was it. No argument, no pleading, no threats. My bunkmate, Harris, noticed something was off. "You alright, mate?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. "Yeah," I said, "just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military blokes know when to leave things alone. Truth is, I wasn't shocked. 6 months before deployment, things had started to change. Little things. Claire stopped asking about my day, started working late at the GP surgery where she was a receptionist, started going to yoga 3 times a week but never seemed to break a sweat. New clothes, new friends I'd never met, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her, didn't start checking her messages or following her around. That's not who I am. But I wasn't blind either. So I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I put important documents in a safe deposit box at a bank across town, birth certificate, marriage license, flat deed with only my name on it thanks to the force's help to buy scheme, military benefits paperwork. I moved my dad's old watch and my mum's jewelry to the same box, things that mattered. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting part of my pay there. Not enough that she'd notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from scratch if things went south. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Take care, yeah." Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a colleague, not a husband heading to the Middle East. I should have known then, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. What she didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment. And what she didn't understand was that I never start fights, but I do finish them. I met Claire at a friend's birthday party in 2011. I was home between postings, staying with my mate Tom in Liverpool. She was finishing her degree in social work but ended up working admin at a GP surgery instead, "Less stress," she said. We were married 9 months later. Claire used to say she was proud of my service, though she never quite understood it. Her dad was a solicitor, her brother an accountant, no military in her family. She'd ask when I was going to get a proper job, not realizing that after 13 years, the RAF was my career, not just a job I was passing time in. We bought our flat in 2015. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. 2 bedrooms, a small garden, quiet street. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the force's loan was in my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what married people do, share things. My dad died a year after we got married, heart attack while walking the dog. My mum passed 3 years later, breast cancer. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough that Claire and I could pay off our student loans and still have a cushion. I deployed 3 times during our marriage, once to Cyprus, twice to Qatar. Each time I came home, Claire seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, like she was playing a part she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife, she told me once after I mentioned possibly extending my contract. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I understood that, I did. But the RAF was the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2021, things started changing. Small stuff at first. Claire got annoyed when I called during her girls' nights, started talking about how her friend Sophie had divorced her husband and was living her best life now, started making comments about how we didn't really have anything in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the new clothes, the yoga membership she rarely used. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I handle things. Never have. My dad taught me to think before I speak, to be sure before I act. So I watched and I prepared, quietly, because my gut was telling me something was coming. And in this life, you learn to trust your gut. 2 weeks after getting the divorce email, I was sitting in the mess when my phone buzzed, a notification from our bank app. Another withdrawal, $62,000. Almost everything that was left. I set my fork down and opened the app. The joint account balance was down to £18.42. Our savings, $35,000 we'd built up over years, was gone, completely transferred to an account I didn't recognize. My mate, Patel, glanced over. Bad news? I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night, I called our bank from the base phone center. Turned out Claire had been moving money for weeks, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers started the day after I deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their kids, their wives, their parents. Normal life happening all around me while mine was burning down. That's when Harris found me. Heard you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal stuff, but Harris had saved my skin in Cyprus once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our flat, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Harris didn't give me the usual, sorry, mate, or, you'll find someone better. He just asked, what's your plan? Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our home security system, something Claire probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange car in our driveway, a man I'd never seen before walking our dog, using my mug, wearing my Liverpool FC hoodie. And there was Claire, laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me, not anger exactly, something colder, clearer. I closed the laptop and pulled out my phone, made a list, called Tom, my mate who became a solicitor, checked the force's loan terms, contact my CO about emergency leave, review home refinance documents, something Claire mentioned casually last year, check the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning a mission. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about strategy. At 0600, before my shift started, I sent an email to Tom with the subject line, need legal help. Discreet and urgent. His reply came an hour later, call me. Secure line only. When I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch and let her own actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back in England. I didn't tell Claire I was coming home, didn't call, didn't text. I just checked into a hotel in Manchester under a different name and contacted Tom. We met at a cafe outside the city. You look rough, he said, sliding into the booth. Feel like it too, I replied. Tom handed me a folder, everything we discussed, the flat deed, loan documents, bank statements. And this, he pulled out a separate paper. Found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a refinance application with my signature on it, except it wasn't my signature. Not quite. Someone had tried to copy it but missed details, the middle initial was wrong and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. Claire did this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Tom nodded. 3 months ago. Used the equity to pull out $220,000. Your signature is required for that since the force's loan is in your name only. Forged my signature, took out a loan against our flat, then cleared out our accounts and divorced me, I said. Busy woman. It gets better, Tom said. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. He's got a record, 2 drink driving charges and a fraud conviction from 2020. I took a deep breath. What are my options? Several, Tom said. But first, you need to decide what you want. I thought about it. I want what's legally mine. And I want her to understand consequences. Tom smiled. Then here's what we do. The next day, I drove past our flat. Mark's car was gone, but Claire's was in the drive. I parked down the street and watched for a while, thought about knocking on the door, confronting her. But that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met with the loan officer who had processed the refinance, showed him my military ID, showed him the real signature on my driver's license, showed him the forged documents. His face went pale. "I'll need to report this immediately." "I understand," I said. "I've already filed a police report." That night, I got a text from Claire. "Who have you been talking to at the bank?" Mark said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud, registered formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Claire called. I let it go to voicemail. "David, we need to talk. The bank called about the flat." "What are you doing?" "If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." Like adults, the same words from her email. I still didn't respond. Tom called that afternoon. "They froze the refinance money. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your car, right? The one in your name?" "Yeah. He got pulled over this morning, driving on a suspended license from those drink driving charges. They impounded the vehicle." "Good," I said. "He also had some interesting things in the car, prescription pads from the GP surgery where Claire works. They weren't blank." I closed my eyes. "She's been stealing prescription pads." "Looks that way. The police are investigating." I hung up and sat on the edge of the hotel bed. This was getting bigger than I'd expected. Part of me wanted to call Claire, warn her, old habits. But then I remembered the security camera footage. My flat, my dog, my life, given away like it meant nothing. This was the path now. I couldn't turn back, and honestly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. His name was Evans, a short man with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. "This happens more often than you'd think," he said, spreading documents across his desk. "Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity." "What happens now?" I asked. "We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone." "How much?" "About half, $11,000. I leaned forward. "Where did it go?" Evans hesitated. "I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my flat, my name forged, my money stolen." He nodded slowly, then turned his computer screen toward me. "These are the transfers out of the refinance account." I scanned the list, multiple transfers to someone named Simon Carter. Not Mark. Someone else I'd never heard of. "Who's Simon Carter?" I asked. Evans shrugged. "Not my department, but you should ask your solicitor to subpoena these records." I called Tom as soon as I left the bank. "Simon Carter," he repeated. "Let me run a check." An hour later, he called back. "Got it. Simon Carter is an estate agent. Specializes in quick sales, cash deals." "She was planning to sell our flat," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "Looks that way. The deposits were probably earnest money to get him moving on a listing. But here's where it gets interesting. Carter has done business with Mark Evans before." "Mark Evans, is that your wife's boyfriend?" "Yes. They've closed 3 deals together in the past 2 years." I sat down on a park bench, trying to process this. So this wasn't just Claire leaving me for some guy. This was a planned operation. "Maybe," Tom said carefully. "I did some digging into Mark Evans. He has a pattern, gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. 3 cases I found so far. Each time, the woman's home gets sold well below market value to one of Carter's clients. Mark gets a cut, then he moves on. And Claire? She knew about this? Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too, or maybe she's in on it." I rubbed my face. This wasn't just about Claire betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated. And other military families had been victims. "What do we do?" I asked. "I've already contacted the National Crime Agency," Tom said. "This crosses county lines, involves military personnel and forces loans. They're interested." That night, I sat in my hotel room with a beer, thinking about everything. Wondering if Claire had been playing me our entire marriage or if she'd gotten swept up in Mark's scheme. Wondering if it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Claire again. David, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud and Mark got arrested for driving your car. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "Who is Simon Carter?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about." #11,000, I wrote. Multiple transfers. Flat listing. No response for 10 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, Tom called. "NCA wants to meet. They've been investigating Mark and Carter for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open." For the first time since getting that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. The next morning, Tom called. "NCA wants to meet. They've been investigating Mark and Carter for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open." For the first time since getting that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. I met with the NCA agents at their field office in Manchester, Agent Singh and Agent O'Connor. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents Tom and I had gathered. "Your case helps establish a pattern," Agent Singh explained. "Shows intent, organization, makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents." "What about Claire?" I asked. The agents exchanged looks. "We're still determining her level of involvement," O'Connor said carefully. "Did she ever mention financial difficulties? Pressure to sell the flat?" I thought back. She kept saying we were flat poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need, our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Singh made a note. "When did that start?" "About 6 months ago. Around the time she must have met Mark." "And the refinance?" "Never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed." They asked more questions, took more notes. When we finished, Singh handed me her card. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Mark. We need to build this case carefully." I nodded. Understood. That evening, I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our flat. Mark's car was back, must have gotten it out of impound. Claire's car was gone. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire, "We need to talk in person. Meet me at Heaton Park tomorrow." I showed the text to Tom over breakfast the next day. "Don't go," he advised. "Nothing good can come from talking to her right now." "I won't," I said. "But I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her." We drove to our flat at 9:30 a.m., parked across the street. At 9:45, Claire came out, got in her car, and drove away, heading toward Heaton Park. "Now what?" Tom asked. "Now we wait," I said. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up, estate agent logo on the door. Simon Carter. Mark came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. "Should we follow them?" Tom asked. I shook my head. "No need. I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior. They upload to cloud storage." Tom smiled. "You didn't mention that before." "Never came up," I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and angled the screen so Tom could see. Carter and Mark were in our living room. Carter was taking photos, Mark was pointing at features of the flat. I turned up the volume. "Should list by the end of the week," Carter was saying. "I've got a buyer interested already. Cash offer, as usual." "How much?" Mark asked. $280,000. "We list at $320,000, they offer £280,000. Everybody's happy." "What about the husband?" "Claire says he's causing trouble." Carter waved dismissively. "Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away." I turned to Tom. You getting this? He was already recording the feed on his phone, every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Singh with a short message, happening now. 30 minutes later, our flat was surrounded by NCA vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Carter and Mark out in handcuffs. My phone rang. Agent Singh. Got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said. Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We're going to need a formal statement from you. Of course, I said. And Mr. Walker, your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed. I looked down the street. Claire was standing on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as agents carried boxes of documents from our flat. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Singh said. On what she knew, and on what you want. I watched Claire for a long moment. 12 years of marriage, good years at the beginning, before whatever this had become. I just want what's right, I said finally. The case moved quickly. Mark and Carter both took plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a multi-county operation targeting military families. Claire maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme, said Mark had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing, said the refinance was his idea and she'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the flat or my military pension, a signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Qatar. No fault, clean break, all things considered. On the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Singh. Mark Evans was sentenced today, 7 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Carter got 10. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you, I said. There's something else, she added. We found evidence they've done this to 9 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. After we hung up, I sat on the balcony of my rented flat, watching the sunset, thinking about those other families, other men who deployed thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness. I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down Mark and Carter's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed, text from Claire, I never meant for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the flat. Couldn't stand to live in it anymore, too many memories, too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cottage outside of Keswick, in the Lake District. 2 bedrooms, a bit of land, a stream running behind it, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the RAF, 15 years was enough. I'd given enough. I got a dog, a border collie named Max, started doing odd jobs for locals. Nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Claire, wondered where she ended up. Tom heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Devon, working at another surgery, starting over, I guess. I didn't hate her anymore. Didn't much feel anything about her, to be honest. She'd made her choices, and so had I. One evening, I got a letter from a woman in Portsmouth. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed when Mark and Carter tried to run their scheme on her. The NCA had given her my name as part of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read it twice, then pinned it to my fridge. Some days, when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I'd look at that letter and remember